Welcome to a breathtaking journey through 2,000 years of unbreakable history in York, Northern England. A city that has refused to die despite the fall of empires, brutal invasions, devastating plagues, raging fires, and devastating wars. Stand atop York's ancient Roman walls today, and you're literally standing where legionaries once scanned the horizon for threats nearly 2,000 years ago. Stroll the narrow, overhanging shambles, and you're walking streets first laid out by Viking settlers. Touch the massive stones of York Minster, and you're connecting with a Gothic masterpiece that took more than 250 years of devotion, craftsmanship, and sheer will to complete. Emperors breathed their last here. Kings governed England from these walls. Armies laid siege. Plague swept through like a shadow. Bombs rained from the sky in modern times. Yet through every catastrophe, York has endured, adapted, and emerged stronger. What you're about to experience is no ordinary history lesson. Using cutting-edge AI technology, we've revived centuries-old engravings, faded sketches, old photographs, and ancient illustrations into vivid, photorealistic scenes that feel alive and immediate. You won't just hear about York's past, you'll see it unfold before your eyes as if transported through time. This is the story of York, covering 2,000 years of triumph, tragedy, and resilience. Let's begin at the very beginning. It's 71 AD. The Roman 9th Legion, known as the Hispana, pushes deep into untamed British territory, chasing rebellious tribes who refuse to submit to the Eagle of Rome. They arrive at a strategic confluence where the rivers Ouse and Foss meet, a natural defensive position with water on three sides. Here they halt, not for a brief rest, but to stay. They construct a fortress, first timber ramparts and palisades, later replaced with solid stone. They call it Eboracum. The 9th Legion transforms this spot into their permanent base. 5,000 battle-hardened veterans who have campaigned from Spain to the Danube. They build bathhouses with heated floors, barracks, temples to Roman gods, granaries, and administrative headquarters. This is no fleeting camp. It's the foundation of a city that will outlast the empire itself. Then comes one of history's enduring mysteries. In the early 100s AD, the 9th Legion simply disappears from all records. 5,000 men, their standards, their pay lists, vanished. No battle report, no grave markers, no mention in later Roman histories. Were they annihilated in Scotland? Transferred secretly? Historians still argue. The 6th Legion Victrix arrives to take their place and remains in York for the next 3 centuries, turning Eboracum from a frontier outpost into a thriving provincial hub with villas, markets, and civilian life growing around the military core. In 211 AD, Emperor Septimius Severus, born in North Africa, conqueror of Parthia, arrives in York after grueling campaigns against Scottish tribes. He's old, sick, and weary. He dies here at the very edge of his vast empire. His son Caracalla stands in York and proclaims it the capital of Britannia Inferior, governing half of Roman Britain from this northern stronghold. The defining moment arrives in 306 AD. Emperor Constantius Chlorus dies in Eboracum. His troops, loyal and eager, immediately acclaim his young son Constantine as the new emperor. Constantine will change the world. He legalizes Christianity with the Edict of Milan, ends centuries of persecution, founds Constantinople as the new Rome, and reshapes the empire into something that will evolve into Byzantium. A modern statue of Constantine stands proudly outside York Minster today, commemorating the city where his imperial journey began. By 314 AD, York sends a bishop to church councils in Arles. Christianity is no longer a persecuted sect. It's rising to become the empire's official faith. When Rome finally abandons Britain around 410 AD, the empire collapses into chaos. Walls fall into disrepair, stones are quarried for new homes. Roman streets vanish under layers of mud and rebuilding. But York does not become a ghost town. People remain. Roman Britons, then newcomers. The Anglo-Saxons inherit the city, rename it Eoforwich, and reshape it for a new era of kingdoms and faith. On Easter Day in 627 AD, King Edwin of Northumbria, a fierce pagan warrior who had fought his way to power, steps into a modest wooden church in York and allows himself to be baptized by Paulinus. One man's conversion might seem small, but when a king converts, his kingdom follows. Christianity spreads like wildfire across the north, and York becomes its spiritual epicenter. That simple wooden church will grow, evolve, and eventually become the magnificent York Minster we know today. By 735 AD, York's bishop is elevated to archbishop, standing equal to Canterbury. England now has two great Christian seats, one in the south, one in the north. In the late 700s, Alcuin of York rises to lead the city's renowned school. Under his direction, it becomes one of the most respected centers of learning in all Europe. Scholars and monks journey from across the continent to study manuscripts preserved here. When Charlemagne seeks to revive education throughout his sprawling Frankish empire, he summons Alcuin to lead the effort. While much of post-Roman Europe struggles in intellectual darkness, York keeps the flame of classical knowledge burning bright. But across the North Sea, longships are being built, axes sharpened. Raiders have heard tales of the gold in English monasteries, the silver in churches, the wealth waiting to be seized. In November 866, the great heathen army, Danish and Norwegian warriors, sails up the Ouse in pre-dawn darkness. Hundreds surround York before the sun rises. Anglo-Saxon defenders are overwhelmed. By nightfall, the Vikings hold the city. They keep it for nearly a century, renaming it Jorvik. This is not just a raid, it's full colonization. Viking families settle, craftsmen open workshops, merchants establish trade routes linking York to Dublin, Scandinavia, and the wider Norse world. The 1970s Coppergate excavations uncovered astonishingly preserved Viking streets, leather offcuts from shoemakers, wooden house timbers, even apple seeds from gardens, surviving a millennium underground. Jorvik grows into one of the most important cities in the Viking realm, possibly home to 10,000 people at its height, an enormous population for the time. They mint their own silver coins, bearing the names of obscure Viking kings. Metalworkers forge tools, jewelers craft brooches, leatherworkers tan hides, woodcarvers shape everyday items, all thriving in the narrow, bustling lanes. Viking rule is chaotic and violent. Kings rise through battle and fall the same way. The last, Eric Bloodaxe, earns his brutal nickname through bloodshed. In 954, he's slain, and Viking Jorvik comes to an end. For 1 century, York returns to Anglo-Saxon control. Then comes 1066, the year that forever changes English history. Norwegian Vikings strike first, seeking to reclaim ancestral lands. Harold Godwinson marches north with lightning speed, crushes them at Stamford Bridge just outside York, and celebrates victory in the city. His triumph is fleeting. Messengers arrive. William, Duke of Normandy, has landed in the south. Harold forces his exhausted army to march 200 miles in 4 days, reaches Hastings, and falls. Legend says, to an arrow in the eye. William the Conqueror claims the throne. In 1068, William rides into York and issues a single command: build me a castle. York Castle rises as a stark reminder of Norman dominance. But the people rebel in 1069, allying with Danish invaders, storming the castle and slaughtering every Norman inside. William's response is apocalyptic: the harrying of the north. His forces burn villages, slaughter livestock, destroy crops, and salt the earth from York to Durham. Chroniclers describe scenes of horror, mass starvation so desperate that some resort to cannibalism. Yorkshire becomes a desolate wasteland. Tens of thousands perish. The massacre leaves a permanent stain on York's history. The 13th century brings immense wealth from the wool trade. English wool is Europe's finest, and York is a key processing and export centre. In 1212, King John grants the city self-governance. York can collect its own taxes, run its courts, and manage its affairs, becoming almost an independent city-state within England. In 1298, Edward I, Longshanks, relocates the entire English government to York for 6 years, treasury, exchequer, law courts, to wage war on Scotland. York serves as temporary capital of England. Scots raid in 1319, killing the mayor right at the city walls. Edward III weds Philippa of Hainault in York Minster in 1328, drawing nobility from across Europe. York stands at the height of medieval power, wealthy, royal-favoured, influential. Then, in 1349, the Black Death arrives silently. Plague races through overcrowded streets, jumping person to person. No knowledge of germs or quarantine. Death carts roll constantly. Between a third and half the population perishes in months. Trade collapses, workshops empty, fields untended. Recovery drags on for decades. The 15th century ignites the Wars of the Roses, 1455 to 1487. A brutal civil war between Lancaster, Red Rose, and York, White Rose, both branches of Edward III's line. The city of York backs the House of York passionately. Yorkist kings Edward IV, victorious warrior, young Edward V, who vanishes mysteriously, and Richard III rule England. To York, Richard is a true northern champion, granting privileges, protecting interests. Crowds cheer his visits. In 1485, Richard falls at Bosworth Field to Henry Tudor. The House of York collapses. York mourns deeply. Tudor rule offers no special favour to the north. Religious storm follows. Cardinal Wolsey, Archbishop of York and Henry's powerful minister, fails to secure the king's divorce from Catherine of Aragon. Wolsey dies disgraced in 1530. In 1536, the Pilgrimage of Grace erupts. 40,000 northerners march under the banner of Christ's 5 wounds, protesting Henry's break with Rome and monastery dissolutions. York is the rebellion's heart. Henry crushes it brutally. Monasteries like St. Mary's Abbey are looted and left to ruin. Catholics practice in secret. In 1586, Margaret Clitheroe, a butcher's wife from the Shambles, hides priests. Arrested, she refuses to plead, protecting her children from torture. She's pressed to death with stones on a door. Slow, agonizing execution. Today, she's a saint, her home a shrine. In 1644, English Civil War siege. Parliament's 20,000 troops encircle York for 11 weeks. Starvation and disease ravage the city. Royalists are crushed at Marston Moor, 4,000 dead in one afternoon. York surrenders. Charles I is beheaded 5 years later. The 18th century calms, but spectacle remains. In 1739, highwayman Dick Turpin hangs at Knavesmire before thousands. The romantic overnight ride legend is later fiction, but his calm death fuels myth. In 1746, 22 Jacobite rebels are executed after Bonnie Prince Charlie's failed rising. York turns fashionable. Georgian elites visit for races, theatre, assemblies. Disaster strikes in 1829. Fanatic Jonathan Martin sneaks into York Minster and sets the choir ablaze. Roof collapses in flames. Martin is caught and declared insane. Minster is rebuilt even more splendidly. In 1839, railways transform York. George Hudson, the railway king, makes it a major hub. Workshops, stations, hotels boom. Population explodes. London is now hours away. Tourism surges. Visitors come for walls, Minster, history. In 1938, York Castle Museum opens with recreated Victorian Kirkgate Street. Authentic shops, gas lamps, cobblestones. Instant success. World War II brings the Baedeker raids. April 29, 1942. Luftwaffe targets historic cities in revenge. York is hit despite no military value. Incendiaries fall. Guildhall burns to ground. Medieval houses blaze. Minster roof catches, but brave firefighters climb amid the raid and extinguish flames. 92 dead, hundreds homeless, swathes ruined. York rebuilds yet again. Post-war. University of York founded 1963. National Railway Museum opens 1964. Jorvik Viking Centre 1984 recreates 10th century streets from Coppergate digs, immersive smells, sounds, animatronics. That year, lightning strikes Minster. South transept roof burns. Repaired once more. 2,000 years of history. Constantine's rise, Viking Jorvik's trade, Minster's soaring arches, Wars of the Roses, Black Death, Civil War sieges, fires, World War II bombs. York has witnessed humanity's greatest heights and darkest depths, ingenuity, faith, violence, courage. From firefighters saving the Minster under falling bombs, to a butcher's wife dying in silence to protect her family. If you're from York, this is your heritage of resilience. If not, now you see why York matters, not just to England, but to the entire story of Western civilization. If this epic tale of York's unbreakable spirit moved you, like the video, subscribe for more revived histories, and comment below, which city should we explore next? Thanks for watching. I'm your host. Together, we'll keep bringing the past to life. See you in the next era.